Since you're not really part of the adult group, sweetie, you don't mind watching the kids again, do you? That's what my mum said to me right before handing me the check for our entire Thanksgiving dinner. The waiter stood there awkwardly, holding the folder out like it was a live grenade. My mother smiled sweetly. My sister smirked. And my heart dropped. I wasn't a teenager. I wasn't broke. I was 28 years old, had a stable job, and paid my own bills. Yet every single year, I was treated like the help, the extra, the stand-in, the unpaid babysitter. But that night, something happened that none of them expected. Thanksgiving was always a big deal for my family. My mum loved the show of reservations at fancy restaurants, expensive wine, and coordinated outfits that looked good on her Facebook posts. This year was no different. We were at Silverwood in one of those upscale places with string lights and a live jazz trio. I'd driven 2 hours to be there, thinking maybe this time would be different. Big mistake. The moment I walked in, I knew the pattern was repeating itself. My sister Hannah was seated right beside Mum, her husband across from her. Their 3 kids were fussing in high chairs. Dad was already deep in conversation about stocks with my brother-in-law, and then there was me stuck on the end. Half a seat away from the kids' table, Mum waved at the waiter. "Could you bring an extra plate for her? She's helping with the little ones." I froze. Helping? Mum didn't even look at me. "Well, honey, you're so good with them. Might as well make yourself useful while we catch up." It took everything in me not to say something right there. But I bit my tongue. The night was young, and I didn't want to start a scene. Dinner dragged on. Between refilling juice cups, cutting up turkey for my niece, and cleaning spilled gravy off my jeans, I barely touched my own meal. Meanwhile, my mum bragged about Hannah's new house, her husband's promotion, and the perfect grandkids. When dessert came, the waiter quietly placed the check in front of Mum. She smiled and slid it across the table right toward me. "There you go, sweetheart," she said softly. "Since you didn't bring anything this year, you can cover dinner." The waiter hesitated, eyes flicking between us. Then he said something that froze everyone at the table. "Thank you for your generosity, ma'am. Your prepayment cleared earlier today. The note from you was very kind." The room went silent. Mum blinked. "What prepayment?" And that's when her perfect little Thanksgiving started to unravel. For a moment, no one said a word. The clinking of forks, the soft jazz in the background, all of it seemed to fade. Mum's frozen smile twitched, and she laughed nervously. "There must be some mistake. I didn't prepay anything." The waiter frowned slightly, checking the tablet in his hand. "According to our system, the full amount was paid this morning, under Mrs. Margaret Lewis. That's you, correct?" My mum blinked fast, glancing at my sister. "Yes, that's me." "But I didn't." Then she stopped. Her face changed. She turned to me. "Did you do this?" I met her stare calmly. "No. Why would I prepay for a dinner I didn't even get to eat?" Hannah tried to laugh it off. Maybe Dad accidentally, but Dad looked just as confused. "I didn't pay anything. You said you'd handle the reservations." The waiter nodded. "That's correct. The note said, for my daughter who always gives more than she gets. Make sure she knows someone sees her." The air turned electric. My sister's smirk vanished. My mum's lips parted slightly, but no words came out. "Someone sees me," I repeated quietly. "That's definitely not from this table." The waiter smiled politely. Whoever paid left a generous tip and specific instructions that everything tonight should go on their card. Even the kids' meals. Mum's face flushed red. "This isn't funny, Claire. If this is some stunt to embarrass us, it's not," I cut in. "But it's interesting that you'd think that." Before she could respond, my phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "Enjoy dinner. You deserve to be celebrated for once." I stared at the text, my heart pounding. I didn't recognize the number, but the timing was impossible to ignore. Mum noticed. "Who's that?" I slid the phone into my bag. "No idea." She glared at me, but I could see the unease behind her eyes. She didn't like not being in control of the narrative, and for the first time, she wasn't. The waiter placed the printed receipt on the table. The total was nearly $740. The words "paid in full" were bold and underlined. Dad cleared his throat. Well, whoever it was, that was incredibly kind. But Mum snapped. Kind? This is humiliating. What will the staff think? That we can't afford our own meal? I tilted my head. Or maybe they'll think someone finally thought I was worth more than a babysitting tip. Hannah looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. Can we just drop it? It's Thanksgiving. Mum forced another brittle smile, desperate to salvage her image. Of course, dear. Let's just forget it happened. But I couldn't forget it. Because whoever M was, they didn't just pay for dinner. They'd lit a spark in a family built on hierarchy and silence. And that spark was about to burn through every false smile in that room. The tension at the table was thick enough to cut with a knife. Mum was fuming quietly, stabbing at her pumpkin pie like it had personally offended her. Hannah was whispering to her husband, trying to pretend the air wasn't charged with discomfort. But I couldn't stop thinking about that note. For my daughter, who always gives more than she gets, make sure she knows someone sees her. The waiter came back, his polite smile masking the awkwardness. Excuse me, ma'am, he said to my mum. Just for record keeping, could I confirm the name on the card again? The first name listed is Michael. Mum froze, mid-bite. My heart skipped. Michael, she repeated. What, Michael? The waiter checked again. It says, Michael Lewis. That name landed like a thunderclap. Dad set his glass down slowly, looking stunned. That's my brother. The table went completely still. Uncle Michael, the family ghost. I hadn't seen him since I was a teenager. He'd left the state years ago after a massive falling out with my parents, something about money and inheritance. They'd forbidden me from speaking to him, said he was trouble. Mum recovered quickly, her voice sharp. That can't be right. He wouldn't do that. The waiter blinked. I can show you the authorization slip if you'd like. No, Mum said quickly, forcing a brittle laugh. No need. Clearly, there's been some kind of confusion, but there wasn't. And the color draining from her face confirmed it. Dad looked at her. Margaret, why would he pay for our dinner? Her jaw clenched. He's trying to get attention. That's what he's always done. But deep down, I could see the fear. Because if Uncle Michael was reaching out, that meant the family's secret wasn't as buried as she thought. Later, when we finally left the restaurant, Hannah and her husband rushed the kids into their car. Mum stayed behind with Dad, arguing in hushed tones by the entrance. I slipped outside to get some air. The night was cold, crisp, and quiet except for the low hum of traffic and the pounding in my chest. My phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. I saw her face when the waiter said my name. Bet she didn't expect that. Call me when you're ready, Claire. My fingers trembled as I read it. He knew I was there. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments about which country you're watching this video from. Enjoy the story. I looked around the parking lot, half expecting to see him leaning against a car, watching. But there was no one, just the faint glow of taillights disappearing down the road. Mum finally came outside. Her smile stretched to thin. You're not going to tell anyone about this, right? It's just going to stir up drama. I said quietly, Mum, he knows something. Why would he reach out now? Her eyes flickered fear, then irritation. He's manipulative. Don't let him fill your head with lies. But I saw her hand shaking as she opened her car door. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't about dinner. Uncle Michael wasn't just being generous. He was sending a message. And whatever that message was, it had my mother terrified. That night, I couldn't sleep. Uncle Michael's message replayed in my mind over and over like a haunting song. Call me when you're ready. Ready for what? What did he know that could make my mother look so terrified? I finally gave in and called the number. The line rang once, twice, and then I heard his voice. Warm, calm, familiar. Hey kiddo. It had been more than 10 years since I'd heard that voice. My throat tightened. Why did you pay for Thanksgiving? He chuckled softly. You're welcome, first of all. But let's just say, it was time your mum remembered I still exist. I hesitated. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. That's because she's been pretending I am one, he said. But I didn't call to stir trouble, Claire. I called because you deserve to know what really happened before you were old enough to understand. My pulse quickened. What do you mean? There was a long pause before he said quietly, "Do you remember Grandpa's will?" I frowned, barely. I was 16 when he passed. Well, your grandfather left something for you, he said, a small inheritance. Not much, but enough for a good start in life, college, a home deposit, whatever you needed. He wanted it to go to you directly. I froze. What? I never got anything, I know, he said bitterly. Because your parents intercepted it. They told the lawyers you'd refused it. Said you didn't want the burden. They used the money to pay off Hannah's student loans and part of their mortgage. For a second, I couldn't breathe. My world tilted. I tried to fight it, Uncle Michael said. For the first time, Grace looked at me not as her jealous sister, but as a mother. Her voice trembled. Mum, how could you? Dad tried to interrupt, but I raised a hand. You know what? Don't bother. Because the lawyer also told me something else. They both froze again. The trust's audit will be finalized next week. Every dollar you spent, every forged signature will be documented. Mum's face went white. You wouldn't? Oh, I already did, I said. The report's been filed. Grace stood abruptly, pushing her chair back. I'm done, she whispered. I don't even want to be associated with this. As she walked out, Mum's voice cracked, pleading, Claire, please think about what this will do to the family's reputation. I met her eyes. You should have thought about that before you sold your integrity for a wedding. Then I picked up my purse, kissed Noah's tiny photo tucked inside, and walked out, leaving behind the family that chose luxury over love. 2 weeks passed after that dinner. I didn't hear from my parents. Not a single text, not a call, not even a guilt-ridden message. The silence was deafening but peaceful. For the first time, my home felt free of their judgment, their manipulation, their control. Then, one crisp Tuesday morning, an envelope arrived in the mail. It was thick. No return address. My heart thudded as I tore it open. Inside was a printed invoice and official hospital statement. Total amount due, $11,037, and below it, written in neat handwriting, were the words, paid in full. I blinked, confused. My mind raced through every possibility. It wasn't Daniel. We hadn't finished the payment plan. It wasn't me. Then I saw the attached note, signed in careful cursive I knew too well. It was from my father. Claire, I don't expect forgiveness. I reviewed the audit report. We know what we did was wrong. I can't undo the damage, but I've corrected what I could. The trust will be restored in your and Noah's name. Whatever happens next, I hope one day you'll remember that even the worst people can learn from their own shame. I just sat there for a while, holding that paper, feeling a mix of emotions I couldn't name it. Relief, sadness, and something close to closure. Later that week, Mr. Porter, the lawyer, called again. The audit wrapped up, he said. Your parents agreed to repay the entire amount misused. The trust is now solely under your control. You can use it for Noah's care, education, whatever you need. I swallowed hard. What happens to them legally? They won't face charges, he said gently. The board accepted their repayment as restitution, but their names are permanently removed from all family trusts. It wasn't revenge, it was justice. Quiet, clean, undeniable justice. A month later, Noah's doctor told us he was recovering beautifully. His heart was strong, his color brighter. I remember looking down at him in that hospital room, thinking he has no idea how much strength he's already inspired. Before we left, I paid the hospital staff personally, just to see the balance hit 0 on the screen. That moment felt like reclaiming my life. As we drove home, Daniel reached over and squeezed my hand. You did it, he said softly. I looked out the window, watching the winter sunlight stretch across the road. No, I said. We did, and maybe Even they learned something. Because sometimes, it takes the weight of a child's heartbeat and the shadow of an unpaid debt to make people finally hear what silence never could. That day, the invoice wasn't just a receipt, it was proof that truth, once buried under lies and luxury, had finally surfaced. And I had found my peace in the price they paid.